On today's episode of Watch Time, we'll be interviewing Jess Adanich, the CEO and founder of DesignPod Studio, and we'll be talking about branding, why it's important, and how it applies to your business right after this. Welcome back to Watch Time, everybody. We're here with Jess Adanich of DesignPod Studio, CEO and founder.
Yes, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that you were able to, come here and jump on the show. And I've been wanting to have a great conversation with you recorded because I know we have a lot of good conversations virtually.
Yes, they turn into hours, 2 hours.
Yes. So thanks for joining me. And for everybody who's maybe watching, listening, that they don't know who you are, they don't know DesignPod Studio or DesignPod Tactical. Can you talk a little bit about, your background and your company?
Yeah, definitely. So DesignPod Studio is a branding, graphic design, and marketing agency. So basically what that means is that we do obviously branding, but graphic design for pretty much anything and everything. And then I also help companies with coming up with a strategy on, what's priorities, because often your budget doesn't allow you to do all the things. Yeah. So making a plan.
Okay. And how long have you been working in graphic design?
I've been doing graphic design for 20 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So you have experience.
Yes. Yeah, a little bit.
And I know you're originally from this area.
Yeah.
The Cleveland, Ohio area, but you are now where in Florida?
I live in South Tampa now. Okay. So Tampa Bay, as we call it, Champa Bay. But I moved to Tampa 4.5 years ago. So yeah, and DesignPod turned 5 in December. So Nice. It was kind of a, whirlwind of decisions.
Yeah. So you said, I'm done with this cold, and you're not looking back.
Yeah. The winter just kills my soul more and more. And it's not so much like the winter and the coldness, it's the gray skies that does it. And I do miss seasons because I love fall. Mm-hmm. So that's a hard thing because it is, when you're in a warm climate, it is kind of the same thing every day.
It's funny because we just had the eclipse, and I saw a meme that somebody posted that was like, for anyone that came to Cleveland for the eclipse, they're like, if they didn't realize that 1 in 5 days has sun, then it's like they didn't plan correctly.
No, they didn't. It's so funny that you say that because that's why I'm in town was to see the eclipse with my family. Mm-hmm. And as the eclipse was happening and it started getting dimmer, I'll say, we just looked at each other like, this is just another day in March. This doesn't seem like it's actually getting darker. This is just a cloudy day.
For sure. Yeah, it's definitely, it's definitely different here than I feel like a lot of places. So I'm glad you got to the sunshine.
Yes, thank you.
So we're going to talk a little bit about branding today.
Yes, one of my favorite things.
And I'm excited because with your experience and your background, but also I feel like this is just a very common topic that people, they don't understand what branding actually is. And they 100%. Don't understand how it affects their business. Yeah. So if you could, let's talk about this, in your sense and what you do. What is a brand?
So a lot of people think that a brand is just a logo. They'll say, well, I just need a logo and that's my brand. It's really not. It's so much more. It's obviously your logo. It's your colors, your fonts, your mission statement, core values, selecting out photography or video that has a specific tone or specific key points in it. It's bringing all of that together so that when you create assets, they're consistent and it really is representing your company and your product in the right light. It's so many more levels than just a logo.
I think at its core, what I'm hearing, the way you're kind of describing it, it's really that thing that differentiates you from somebody else that does what you do.
Yes, definitely. It's why, if you see any commercial for, we'll just say potato chips, why that company is saying we're different than another brand of chips. Mm-hmm. It's really telling your consumer what values you have as a company, why your product's different, the benefits of it, and then that carries through all of your messaging.
Okay, yeah. So I guess expanding upon that, I know we were kind of talking a little bit earlier about this, but how does your brand, for you as a professional, when you're working with a client, how does their brand play into their marketing materials?
I mean, I might be biased, but everything. Because if you look at it as a house, I use that analogy, that it really is the foundation. Mm-hmm. If you're going to invest all the money into a company or building a house, why would you just put it on grass or dirt. You're not, because it's going to be faulty. So you want to build that nice concrete foundation so that everything that you invest and build on top of it are going to be solid, consistent. So a lot of companies, they think that they might be able to design a logo themselves, and that's might be fine, but if you don't have those key things figured out in the very beginning, you really are doing yourself a disservice in the long run, because eventually you're going to get to the point where, Walmart wants your product potentially, and you have no consistent brand for people. That's how consumers recognize you.
Yeah.
Your brand is almost like a name, like Bill. If you change your name every day, that'd be confusing.
Yeah.
So that's you.
Well, and I think there's something to be said, like when you talk about and I'm just thinking of this from a logo perspective, but I think there's something to be said with companies that make their own logo and they don't understand some of the technical sides of things, right? So RGB versus CMYK, and then they create a logo. For those watching, listening, RGB is for more digital and CMYK is for print. But I feel like with those color spaces, for example, maybe somebody made it themselves, and then I just think about the company that what happens if you just take off and then all of a sudden you have an opportunity where somebody has a magazine and they go, we want to put your ad in our magazine and it's going to be in front of all these people, but you have this DIY logo, you send it to them, it's low resolution
and they can't use it.
Yeah, it's just there's nothing there.
100%. And then you have to pay someone to get it into that high resolution vector, which vector is a file format that no matter what size, if it's an inch by an inch or 100 feet by 100 feet, it's going to keep that crisp line work.
Yeah.
And that's why, it's the lack of education, which is fine. You're not supposed to know all the things about life, but making sure that you have that logo in the proper format is crucial, because I have a lot of companies or even clients that reach out to me and say, hey, we're doing something, we're doing packaging or print ad, and our logo's in Microsoft Word, they can't use it. And I'm like, that's not going to go on a billboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like what ends up happening, I mean, you tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like this happens with us for video, is not only when that happens, is it you have to have it made, but there's always a time crunch. Can you get that to us in a week?
Yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yes, yeah.
So I feel like that even drives the price up more versus to your point, if you would have just started with the solid foundation, when that came up, you would have been like, oh, no problem. And if you didn't know you had it, you probably could call somebody like you and say, hey, I have this, you made us this logo, it has to go in this magazine, what do I send them? And you could probably be like, oh, it's that file that I sent you labeled this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think that there's times in a company that when it comes to branding stuff, mission, core values, that's something that you can figure out internally amongst yourselves or maybe your own family focus group. But when it comes to a logo, a lot of people try to pack everything into the kitchen sink. If you're a cupcake company and you just make cupcakes, you shouldn't have to have everything about your company in that logo.
Yeah.
You don't have to have every type of cupcake in your logo.
Yeah.
A lot of people try to pack what their product does, how they make their product, all these things into it, and you're trying to jam an encyclopedia on the side of a penny, when really that logo is going to go on packaging or a sell sheet, a catalog that's going to be accompanied with other information, so you don't need to pack everything into it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I would say one thing that I guess getting your insight into this, and maybe this is something for people that are watching and listening to consider, but I know a lot of times when you talk about people just think their logo is their brand and they really need to look at their core values and what their just their beliefs and what they do. Do you find that if somebody says they're a brand that's we're very approachable, does that then play into the design of the logo? The logo has to be, or the colors have to be approachable?
Yes, and I think approachable's an interesting word, because I think, and I know you're just using a word, but to use that as a really good example, because approachable, what does that exactly mean in the brand?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
What approachable to me, my favorite color is orange.
Yeah.
So I might be attracted to that. But are you really trying to get somebody to approach you because you're calming, you seem friendly, or you're approachable because your product is going to be used for in a sense of emergency? So there's all these different things that you need to think about for that. But color theory, I love color. Color theory is a whole different thing. So that's why you'll see a lot of medical companies using blues because they're calming and that sort of thing. And emergency companies red, because in our brains we associate colors with specific feelings and thoughts.
Yeah.
So it's that subliminal, visuals messaging.
I think it's interesting too, like how it plays into the design, and this is just an example off the top of my head, but I just think about like the color red,
Yes.
right, and like how logos work off of like with that color. So like I think of like Friendlies, which is like clearly like this family like
Yeah.
feeling, and then like you think of Netflix, which is like very like cutting edge and like motion picture feeling. And I just think
Yeah.
it's interesting that they're both using red, but the way it's designed, like it like helps transfer like those feelings.
Yes, because
Yeah.
Friendlies, for an example, their font is very soft. It's a script, so that combined with the red, and red's the number one seen color. You know, when you think
Yeah.
about the color spectrum in marketing, you know, McDonald's, but it's also the very first color to fade when it's outside. Because the sun breaks down that pigment the fastest.
Yeah.
So that's why you see billboards that have like the red faded but the blue still popping.
Yeah.
It's because the sun's breaking that down. So that's another layer of when I'm
Yeah.
talking to people about their branding of where are you most likely going to market this, you
Yeah.
know, and how are all of those parts going to fit together to create, you know, solid lasting visuals.
That's one thing to really, that's interesting about the red. I feel like that's one thing to consider, like when I think about like when you talk about laying a solid foundation for everyone that's watching
Yeah.
and listening, like you could just say you pick red, because some people might be like, I like red, so they pick red.
Yeah.
But then like they're maybe going to like produce something, like maybe they have it's a client facing B2C business, they're going to have a storefront and they use red everywhere, and they don't know that because they haven't talked to somebody like you, and then now they
Right.
find themselves having to replace everything sooner than had they talked to you. You could have been like, I know you like red, but
have you considered?
Yes.
Yes. And there's the other layer of what are all your competitors doing?
Yeah.
You know, in this area, Newmark, Grubb, Knight Frank, I think that's what they're still called. Back in the day, I used to work for Grubb & Ellis. It's a commercial real estate company. They had yellow. They then ended up being bought out by Newmark, and Newmark Commercial Real Estate, they have red signs. Well, there's no one else really in this area. I think maybe one that's doing red signage. So it's also thinking about what your competitors are doing. And if you're a landscaping person and everybody else is using green, maybe you do something else to make yourself stand out. Because going back to the whole branding thing, it's about what makes you different and how you can separate yourself too.
Yeah, there's a brand locally that I noticed their signs everywhere. I haven't recently, but like they're like a concrete leveling business, and they use red, and I always see their signs, and it's probably because it's red.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Definitely.
So I guess one thing, like kind of going from here, like for everyone that's kind of listening, you know, investing in good marketing assets, why is that important? Like, and what should you be investing in?
Yeah.
Maybe you could talk about it from a new company's perspective. Anybody who's like, if you're watching this, you're probably saying like, I need to know more about branding. So like,
Right.
for people that are at the beginning of their branding journey, like, why should they invest in good assets, and what are those assets?
I think, one, everybody should invest in professional grade design and marketing assets at some point. Maybe in the beginning of your company, you don't have the budget to do all the things, but like we had said, starting with a logo, your branding, doing that first, because it's going to be so much more money down the road when your company does ramp up and you're going to have to backtrack and redo everything. It's just not worth that. Right now, I have a client that, you know, he engineered, designed a product himself, and he understood, hey, I can't do this myself. I know that I want this company to be big, so I'm going to do the logo and the branding first, so that when I get to that point, I can walk into Walmart or Home Depot and be ready to go.
Yeah.
I think having that forethought is very, very important. And branding is also, I equate it to people, the analogy I use is if you're going to go to a job interview, you're not going to show up in your pajamas.
True.
I mean, unless maybe you're working for a pajama company, but
Some people may.
some people may, they might not get the job. So your branding, marketing, all of that is the way the world perceives you. And especially here in this part of the world, we are judgy. We subconsciously judge one another. We judge products. We judge everything in society. And people do that when they're taking their hard-earned money and investing that in a product or a service. So if they look at your assets and they're not visually professional, then they might not spend their money with you. You know, you might be making money as a company and think, okay, if it's not broken, why fix it? But at the end of the day, you don't know how much money you're missing out on by those people that could be buying your product if your visuals were more high end.
That's interesting. Like, I that is one thing to really think about, because like when I think about brands that I've interacted with, or even customers that we've worked with from a video perspective, oftentimes they want to be perceived as a high-end brand.
Yes.
But then they DIY things that I wouldn't, like, for us, we always tell people, like, if you're going to create a video, like, you can go ahead and you can DIY the content that's going on social media, because it's, like, not going to stick around.
Yeah.
People expect that to be user generated. But where we tell them it's not smart to DIY your content is, like, content that's going on your website. Because content that goes there, like, that's, if your website's your virtual storefront, this is oftentimes the first content that your customer's interacting with when they come to your website. And it's fine on social media because they know that there's a social media person.
Yeah.
We try to get social media assets to our customers as well, just because if we're creating content, we should try and maximize it for them.
Yes.
But the goal really at that point, when you get to the website, is to, like, give this, like, you know, you wouldn't want to walk into Home Depot and have, like, store shelves that are, like, fallen over, product that, like, looks all, you know, like, messed up and nasty sitting in the front of the store. You want to walk in and get this experience that's like, this is a high-end store. And I feel like when you talk about this from a logo perspective, there are brands that want to be perceived as high-end brands, but then they go and they do the logo themselves. They have, like, a family member do it, or that's not a professional, or they go to, like, Fiverr and they get the same logo that person has maybe given 10 other people.
Yes. Yes.
So it's
everybody wants to look like Apple and Under Armour, but they don't want to invest the money. Every great brand that's gone from a garage up to, you know, a multi-billion-dollar industry has realized that investing in it, it's an investment. You know, it's I also tell people, think about your own shopping habits. Most people, if you're into wine or liquor, let's say wine, because that's, like, there's people that are really, really wine connoisseurs, and then there's other people that just buy whatever, me. You go in and you buy based off of the label because you're not educated on it. If you're going to the grocery store or another Home Depot or buying a product that you're not really sure of, you subconsciously, I mean, we do it because we're in this industry. The average consumer subconsciously is going to, in the back of their mind, relate the products and compare them based on the feel of the packaging, the graphics, all of those things. So and price point, but visuals are a direct, often in our mind, reflection of the quality of products. Perception is reality, and that's what we do as consumers. So when people say, why do I need to have, you know, invest in branding or marketing? Because it can make you money. It can increase your sales. Granted, a product on the shelf cannot talk to you and say, you know, I'm a razor at Target and 15 people walked by me today and only 10 bought. It's not going to be able to do that, but you're going to see it from your sales reps when your sales reps get you in 50 more doors, or when sales do increase. We saw it, you know, prior to starting DesignPod Studio, I was the head of marketing design at Mace Pepper Spray, and we overhauled our packaging. We went from a plastic clamshell to a card blister that was much more high end. It increased sales. So it is. I mean, it's definitely, you can see it in the numbers, and it's, you know, I just tell people it can increase your ROI.
You know what? It's interesting that you, like, when you talk about packaging like that, I was like kind of thinking back to Home Depot is like a great reference for me. So, like, I have, like, Milwaukee tools, like some Milwaukee tools, and Milwaukee to me seems like a very high end, like, this is a tough brand. But I also own a lot of Ryobi stuff. What's interesting is something about the color scheme and the design of Ryobi, it doesn't feel as tough as Milwaukee does to me, but it feels more like, I don't know, like friendly, like like calming maybe, and like that green or whatever that is.
Like an entry level of, like, I've never done yard work, but I'm going to start.
Well, like, and that's the thing, like, if I buy one Milwaukee tool, I'll be like, okay, I bought a tool. But then I could be at Home Depot and, like, I could purchase, like, 3 Ryobi tools and feel okay, like, well, this is Ryobi tool, so, you know, like, that's, you know, like, it could be like, it could come to more money, but something, I don't know, it has something
in my mind, it has something to do with the design or the branding or something that has me, like,
it's what you hit the nail on the head. It's really everything together. You know, and a good example of that in a very simple way is I had another client, she was going to trade shows, and all of her marketing materials were, like, on copy paper. And we updated design and everything. And I said, you know, what you really need to do is print this on a little bit heavier stock because people are going to treat it differently. And no joke, she came back to me after a few shows and she said, Jess, they're no longer, like, folding my materials and shoving them in their pocket. Because when you're handed something that you can feel is a nicer quality, you're going to treat it differently. And so, you know, same thing with your Milwaukee tool. Everything from how it's packaged to the look of it makes you like, oh, I bought something. You know, it's why people buy an iPhone or a smartphone and you keep the box. I don't need to keep my iPhone boxes, but I keep them and I cut cords in them or, you know, push pins because I feel like I spent so much money on this product. I need to keep this really nice box.
I have all of my iPhone boxes. I have my MacBook Pro boxes. I have my iMac boxes. I'm like, I can't get rid of this.
No, you can't. You can't. That's good design and a true reflection of a company investing in it and it paying off.
So going a step further from this, because you've kind of given us all these examples of like, you know, where, you know, like why is this a good investment for your brand? What should you invest in first, which we know is like really getting that brand strategy in place and logo and colors. You know, and then going from there, you have the foundation set. So if somebody that's watching, listening is trying right now, maybe they're shopping, they go, I really need to find a good fit for my company. So what does the right brand agency look like, you know, from your perspective, being a graphic designer, a branding agency, marketing agency, like what should they be looking for when they're trying to hire somebody else?
It's a few things. I tell potential new clients that it's like business dating because you want to find an agency that is going to offer you the services that you need at that point in time, whether it's branding or a video, a website, that they have the service that you need, that they're going to do it at a professional level, that you're not going to be spending $1,000 to then down the road spend $10,000 and you have to redo it over and over again. And also just personally, I feel that a client should be looking for similar values, right? Mm-hmm. I'm very honest and transparent with my clients. And I think most business owners are going to respect that. Yeah. So making sure that you're not getting, to be blunt, hoodwinked. You know, there's a lot of companies, just like any other industry, that will say, I'm going to do X, Y, Z for you. And then they ultimately really don't. So looking at their business reviews, you know, if you ask them to call it past clients, every good agency should have a client that will be able to talk positively and honestly about them. But I think that those things really matter. And I'll tell, you know, the potential client, if this isn't a good fit, I'll help you find someone. But we should also click, right? That's why I call it business dating. That I want this to be something fun. What we do for a living is a lot of freaking fun. So if you're going to be paying me to do fun, then we should be having fun together and you should enjoy it and not be upset when you have to write me a check. So it really is all those levels from, you know, making sure that they have the service that you need to transparency, good communication, and then do you guys click? Because I think personality types, it's, you know, English is a smart way of doing business.
That's interesting. I will say, like, that's like when you're talking about that, like making sure that you click and then being able to refer somebody else. That is something that I just today I was talking to somebody at an event and they were interested in our services. And I go, okay, I'm like, you know, we'll connect, we'll talk. But I'm like, even if I'm not the right fit for you, like maybe I'm not the right price point, maybe what you do, you need somebody who specializes more than I do in this. Like, I'm happy to refer you to somebody else, because at the end of the day, to your point, like, I feel like that's the mark of a good agency. They say, I'm not for everybody, but let's find out if I'm for you. And if I'm not for you, then I will help you find the person that is.
Yes. Yeah. And that, for me, when I interact with people, also eases them. Because when you're going to an agency, it might be sticker shock because you have no idea about it. So when you're uneducated on it, you know, it's like going to the hospital and you don't know what a procedure is going to cost. So it's the same thing when you're not educated on it. And then you say, okay, well, this is going to be $1,000 for this. Oh, okay, I wasn't expecting that. When I say, hey, if this is a good fit, there's no pressure. I'm not asking you to marry me at the end of the call. I'm just asking that, you know, we see if this works for each other. And then if it does, we'll figure out a way to get to the next step.
I do want to just like put a quick little like PSA in here for everyone watching and listening. Professional services are expensive. So so like that is one thing, like you can't get your pricing based off of Fiverr, Upwork, and things like that, because when you open a marketplace, you know, that's not just local, like you're talking about all over the world. You know, the way economies work in different places, and everyone should know this, but just in case you don't, it's not going to be the same. And the problem is when you're trying to take high volume on, like a lot of these different online companies do, you, like I said before, you're probably going to get a logo or some type of branding or something that somebody else has, and they may or may not be in your market.
Yeah.
And you won't know until
It's too late and it's on a billboard or all of your vehicles.
Yes, yeah. That's usually what happens. And you find out, oh, competitor ABC has the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing that I like I'm so glad that you brought that up because it's very similar to plumbers. You have something wrong in your house and you pay this guy or girl $300 to come in, 15 minutes, and they fixed it. Well, if you could have done that, you would have done that. But you didn't have those 20, 30 years of experience and expertise and knowledge to do that. So you are getting what you pay for. And I think that specifically in the creative world, a lot of things are lost in translation. You could use someone in Fiverr or overseas. There's nothing wrong with it. It's America. I believe in free choice. You do what you want. But when you're talking about creativity, I have people that come to me and say, yeah, I need somebody off of Fiverr. I found them online, but I can only communicate through the platform. I was trying to communicate this, but it came out this way. And, it's much easier. Whereas in both of our businesses, they can talk to us.
Yeah.
And it's almost like being a visual therapist.
Yeah.
When someone says, oh, I'm just not feeling it. I then have to dissect and decipher what that means.
Yeah.
Whereas that's what you're paying for. Honestly, all of my years of experience, training, and that one-to-one, you get Jess.
Yeah.
You get those calls at 5 o'clock on a Friday. Oh my gosh, I have a meeting on Monday. I'm freaking out. I need this, this, and this. We'll get it done.
Yeah. Hey, yeah, I really think that expertise is something that is very, it is overrated, or not overrated, but it's like undervalued. Let me rephrase it.
Yeah.
In the marketplace. Like at the Eclipse, right? So I didn't bring my camera with me, and I was like, I don't want to bring my camera. I don't want to have to buy the filter to do this thing. I'm like, plus I don't like to use our work cameras for like personal stuff because if it gets damaged, so we don't have it for work.
Yeah.
So I had my iPhone and an extra pair of Eclipse glasses, and I was just like,
Were you doing the lineup thing?
I did all this I lined them with the glasses. I snapped photos, but like everybody that was there with my family, like they were having a hard time getting a photo. Well, I have ProCam that I downloaded because I use my phone sometimes for content creation, and I was adjusting the ISO and I was adjusting the shutter speed, and I was able to use the glasses to get these solid photos, and then I was able to shoot them high enough where I needed them to be, where I could then blow them up in Photoshop and then create a graphic. And I posted a graphic yesterday with the first half going up to totality because I had to leave after totality. I had everything going up to that, and was it the best photo out there? No, because I've seen some that people took with professional cameras that were awesome.
Yes,
but it looked really good, and I was just talking about this. So this is where a professional is different than an amateur, in my opinion, is that I had an iPhone and a pair of Eclipse glasses, and I was able to create something that looked pretty good. Versus somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, they may have just
you knew all the settings that many of us don't even know exist.
Yes, and that was the thing. So it's like that's what you're paying for, is that expertise and those years of knowledge. So for sure. Well, I really appreciate you coming on this episode.
Of course, thank you for having me.
And for anybody that's watching, listening, if you are in the tactical or public safety space and you are manufacturing products or services, selling services, make sure to check out the next episode because you're coming back.
Yes, I am.
And we're going to talk about branding, but we're going to talk about it from a tactical and public safety perspective. So for those people that are watching right now, listening, if they want to learn more about you, where can they do that?
Yes, so you can go to DesignPod.studio, and then also on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, DesignPod Studio, or you can follow me, Jessica Adanich.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much, Jess, for coming on.
Yeah,
and we will talk again in the next episode.
Looking forward to it.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Watch Time. We hope you guys enjoyed today's episode.
And remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes.
And if you want your question answered on our podcast, go to flexmediacle.com/watchtime.